right, listeners, welcome to the Walnut Desk Podcast. I'm Will.
And I'm Ryan.
Today we're going to talk about Summerfest.
Summerfest! Woo! But first, we're going to do a new segment on the Walnut Desk Podcast in which we talk about what the desk has been up to, where the desk has been going, and whether we're going to be at any events in the future, because we've been doing a lot of stuff in the Bay Area, and we feel like we should talk about it.
Yeah, and if you're out there and listening, you should join up with us. Meet us there. Say hello.
The first thing we want to cover in this opening segment is that our jokes have been showing up in very conspicuous places lately.
Like everywhere.
We've been doing jokes, and they've been showing up in much more popular, much more well-known venues. Like, some of them are a little bit, could be just sort of timing, but some of them are, definitely the same exact joke.
And arrived at, same conclusions on topical content.
Yeah.
As well.
Yep, so the offenders are probably the staff of, and not actually the people, Rhett and Link, their mythical morning podcast, Wired Magazine's web video feature. They do, this weird, well, it's usually pretty fluffy. It's they do a short 5-minute daily video.
Right on the home screen, right?
Right on the home page.
Auto plays.
Yeah. And then the last and biggest offender is John Oliver.
Yeah.
Last week tonight.
I'm the proudest of joke theft victimhood on that one.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
I'm very happy. If you guys follow us on Twitter, let's let's dive into each of these. You want to start back with Rhett and Link?
Sure. Yeah, after our placebo episode, Rhett and Link ran a bit on crystals.
Which we also covered.
Yep, which we covered.
And we arrived at the conclusion that if it's not hurting anybody, and it's making your life a little bit easier and better,
if you think it helps,
then by all means, engage in the placebo effect of crystals.
Yeah, use it.
Lo and behold, a 15-minute segment.
Rhett and Link came to the same conclusion. One possible explanation is that we're simply tapped into the spirit world of inspiration, and we just happen to be getting good ideas at the same time as everyone else.
I think that's
and we just got our finger on their pulse, but I don't think so. I believe they're stealing our jokes.
Oh.
Because we're small
right.
and relatively new, and it's right in line with our conspiracy episode. I mean, we have to engage the conspiracy. If we're not going to start conspiracies, then what the fuck are we doing on this podcast?
Right, and it's, you got a media company, you hire a lot of people. What are those people at the bottom doing besides trolling Twitter for a little material?
Didn't Rhett and Link get in trouble for that?
I don't know.
I think they did.
Did they?
Yeah,
we have to look into that.
Yeah,
in further vein of conspiracies, Wired ran the front page video. Just a lot of the same topics that we covered. They didn't go as far out there, and I think they did their readers and watchers a disservice by not talking about Saturn.
Okay, it was a feature on conspiracies.
It was kind of boring.
It was titled Conspiracies.
Yeah.
It covered some of the similar things that we covered in the episode.
Okay.
But just very briefly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It didn't go in quite as deep as we went with Jeff.
And the one with John Oliver is the one that I am proudest that happened.
Same.
Lots, the HBO audience is huge. So listeners, if you go onto Twitter and search hashtag Comey is Slenderman, and if you follow us, you already know that we broke this story months ago. That former FBI director James Comey is Slenderman.
I believe we used breaking news. This was the story we broke.
Yeah, John Oliver broke it too.
John Oliver broke it too.
Which is fine.
Just a little slow on the uptake, John.
Yeah, a little slow.
Sorry. That wraps that up. But in the spirit of what we want to do with this section of the podcast, we were also recently at the ID10T or Idiot Festival in Mountain View, which we're going to talk about in this episode. And this episode, again, is called Summerfest.
Summerfest. So we're going to start you guys off, as we always do, with a definition of this, but it's kind of a two-part definition here because it's a compound word, a forced combination. So we've got summer. Summer is the warmest season of the year. In the northern hemisphere, it occurs from June to August. In the southern hemisphere, it's from December to February.
Yep, it's when you're not experiencing seasonal depression.
And fest is a suffix, and in nouns, it denotes a festival or a large gathering of a specified kind. So the ID10T Fest, which we learned while we were there at the end of the first day, right before the headliner came on, that it is not pronounced Idiot Fest. It is pronounced ID10T, as in D10, as in D&D, as in it was also like role-playing game and comic book festival, and we didn't know that.
Yeah, it was cool. They had we discovered that they had tabletop games. We'll talk about this later, but it was way cooler than I thought it was going to be.
Definitely. Way cooler than Homeboy when we walked in needing to sit Indian style next to the merch booth for a little chill out.
I mean, he was on too much acid or something.
Yeah. But that was the first impression of the festival was great, we got the cooler in with all of our goodies. Mm-hmm. And there's our patron who needs...
Teenage boy meditating by the trash can. There's a picture of it. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll find the picture.
It's there.
We walked around. There's a semi-half circle horseshoey sort of layout surrounding the main stage. We walked around that. We walked around all the exhibits. We saw some cool artists, and we start to notice as we're walking around, it's kind of a big area, so we're exploring, but it starts to occur to us that there might not be that many people in this festival compared to how many people they expected to come to this festival.
And to put it into perspective, this event was at the Shoreline Amphitheater, where I've been to multiple fests. I won't necessarily call them Summerfests because they didn't occur during the warmest months of the year, typically between June and August. But I have been there for multiple fests, and the level of get lost on the lawn is you walk away from your blanket at most of these events, and you can't find it again. You leave to go to the bathroom, and the blanket is just lost in the wilderness. What was the lawn like this time?
There was maybe... There were under 30 groups of people on the lawn when we first got there.
Yeah.
Without question. Mm-hmm. And getting lost was not possible.
No. Oh no, it would require us to have snuck in 4 times the quantity of vodka that we did in order to get lost there.
Yeah, but it was just it seemed small because it was so empty. If it were more packed, I think the place would have seemed larger. So that was one of the biggest things that stuck out to us is that you guys, whoever put this together, didn't sell as many tickets as they wanted to.
No.
Which was honestly, ultimately, I think, unfortunate. Because it was really cool.
It was a cool festival. I think that it unfortunately coincided with the San Francisco Pride weekend.
Right.
And I think that the big free party in the city versus the expensive 2-day music festival a lift ride away from the city.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a no-brainer for a lot of folks.
Totally.
So.
What was it? It ended up being $70 each of us.
Yeah, list was $100. They had a bulk discount, so 2-day pass for so it was $75.
Yeah. So that makes sense. And so we just walked around. We got to meet comic book artists, talk to them. There were some really cool people there. I actually can name one of them if you guys want to check somebody really cool out.
Yeah, this dude was awesome.
Gilbert Leiker, GilbertLeiker. He appears to have a Tumblr, and his business card is a little drawing that he did himself. But he has these really cool canvas and print versions of paintings of really bizarre paintings of Miles Davis.
Yeah.
Profile shots.
I would call them carnival caricatures.
Yeah.
It was if Miles Davis were a sideshow act, this is what his poster would look like.
Right.
And if Tom Waits were a Cyclops, this is what his poster would look like.
They were really cool. Bowie, there were some really cool ones in there, so check that out. Find that guy.
Speaking of Bowie, this has nothing to do with Bowie.
Bowie.
Do you recall the name of the band that was on? I've been thinking about the image of the empty lawn there. Do you recall the name of the band that was on that had a crowd vocal track?
The Mowglis.
The Mowglis. So it becomes glaringly obvious when a music festival is empty.
Yep.
When bands are playing crowd vocals through their own PA system.
Yeah, so listeners, they had a track on their end that the band was pumping out through a PA system the crowd singing along with their song, and that was not happening. There wasn't enough people to sound like the 400 or 500 people that it seemed like that were singing along with their song.
Yeah.
It was really bizarre. It was very surreal. It made me like the band even less than I already did with their shitty music.
Our group all kind of looked at each other and had a moment of, is this really happening? And then a moment of disbelief that anyone would actually do that.
Yeah.
And then a moment of like coming to terms with the truth of looking around, realizing nobody's singing, realizing that the crowd vocals are still coming through, and realizing that somebody said, no, this is how you do it.
This is how you do it.
And they go, okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily blame them.
Oh, no, I don't think it was them.
There's some band manager who was like, this is how you make it sound great or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, it's not. It's really not. But like, and to flip the other side of that, it's like I wouldn't want to be in a band playing for that few people in that large space either. It's fucking intimidating.
Right.
It's terrible. Every band that did play fucking like killed it with energy, even if I didn't like their music. Right? Like they were performers.
Everyone brought it. There was no one trying to collect a quick check because the venue was empty. Everyone brought their A game, whether or not their music was what we wanted to hear. You're right about that.
Right. But that day went on. We kind of wandered around, talked to people, tried to check out like some panel stuff, but we didn't really get in there because it was crowded. And then the panel tent, which is like way far away from the main stage, turned into like EDM dance party in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah,
which is really weird. We couldn't even walk through it anymore.
No, we couldn't even get to the schedule, to the big wall schedule. We had to resort to the digital version. Yeah.
And then we came back and saw OK Go.
Yeah.
Which is like if the brand Apple had a band, that's what band it would be.
That band is a aluminum unibody case of a band.
They had tons of energy and they seemed like pros. Like they played well. Their music is they're a band who's famous for their music videos, right?
That's true. And I really have appreciated all of their music videos. They're all like big shoots. They're all kind of coming from the band as far as inspiration goes, as far as I know. The like pieces that I've seen about their music videos.
Yep.
But the music just didn't blow me away.
And they played a Led Zeppelin cover, which wasn't. I like Led Zeppelin,
right?
And it was a decent cover.
It was a decent cover.
It was just flat in the same way that all their music is flat.
Yeah. There's a through line for that band that is.
I don't think you have a soul.
There's a thing that's not there. And then Weezer.
And then
it got really, 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 really good.
Yeah.
Weezer put on a fantastic show. I had never seen them, so it was a treat.
Me either. I'd never seen them. And, it's like a band that we have listened to since we were kids. Really, it's like a Blue Album. Grew up on that shit. Like, that was great. Yeah.
They played a lot of stuff from all throughout their career. They did a 4-song medley.
Yeah, that was smart.
What were the songs? It was Dope Nose, The Good Life, Keep Fishin', and Back to the Shack, all in one song, not in that order.
They couldn't have played all of those songs, so just smashing them up together is like, for a crowd, pretty entertaining.
Speaking of Weezer, I've been following Rivers Cuomo, lead singer of Weezer, on Twitter recently.
Oh man,
have you been watching his Twitter feed at all?
No, only when I've seen you bring it up.
Yeah, well, just like looking at it, he's the guy who like posts tweets that should have an image with them.
No, it wasn't me.
But they don't. Right? Like he has a tweet that says it's soccer true. With Leo.
Yeah.
And then
that's it.
There's no image of him playing soccer with Leo. It just says soccer with Leo. And
wasn't there one that was like, I wish we had more people at this pool party?
Yeah.
And there should be a picture of an empty pool to make that funny.
Which is the genius of Rivers Cuomo. He keeps it funny and he keeps it real,
right.
Despite being like one of the weirdest cats out there.
Right. He does seem like somebody who got famous too young or something and like put up a wall of nobody says no around him and has faced that, whatever that, like, I don't know how, like, deep or meaningful watching somebody go through those challenges, related challenges to that are, but they're real to him.
Right. Some other things, and you should give him a follow on Twitter right after you follow at Walnut Desk Pod.
And then so while we were sitting on the lawn watching bands, this dude starts walking around with a bag.
Is this, yeah.
Full of, like, fake little poster card things.
Yeah, they were
postcards.
What if it's not bigger. A 3x5, like a 6x10?
I don't know.
We'll call it.
I don't know.
Maybe a little smaller.
They were like an unfortunate size because somebody was going to have to go pick them up because he was just dropping them. He was obviously being paid to put these posters for Silicon Valley, the TV show.
The HBO TV show, the same network who broke second the story about Slenderman.
Yeah, get into it second. Slow on the uptake. They had this kid going around just dropping these little posters on the ground on the lawn.
Yeah, just an ad, like tune in to Silicon Valley.
Not handing them to anyone.
No, he was dropping them. He was littering.
Yeah.
And this job at a full festival probably would have taken him a while. He would have schmoozed through the crowd, hand them to people, talk about the show.
Yep.
He walked through with a full bag. It was one of those clear bags.
Yeah.
Not like a shopping bag, but like a clear, we need to see everything that's inside this bag.
Right.
And just was throwing handfuls of them like he was a flower girl.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And he was just throwing them on the lawn to nobody.
Crazy.
So he spent a grand total of the 2 minutes it took for him to walk from one end of the lawn to the other. We have a clip, it's up on our Twitter at Walnut Desk Pod, of him throwing these things all over the place. And then he spent the rest of the festival at a picnic table just texting.
Yeah.
With a empty bag next to him.
God. I mean, like, I see shit like that, and then I'm like, the next day I, like, put my pizza box in the recycling bin. I'm like, fuck, it's an uphill battle.
You're not supposed to put your pizza box in the recycling bin, Ryan.
No, the pizza box that the frozen pizza came in.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice course correction, sir. For our listeners out there, even one drop of oil or grease on your pizza box can mess up a whole batch of recycling. So don't be that guy who tries to recycle, or gal, who tries to put their pizza box in the recycling. When you get your Extreme or your Papa G's or your Papa J's, make sure that goes in the garbage, or cut around the oil stains.
Cut the oil stains out. Seems
be
like
friendly to Mother
though.
Earth. # climate change. # make sure you're keeping it real. And we came back the next day, and there were even fewer people.
There were. It's like if day one was a little bit underwhelming because we were like, shit, this really isn't, picking up steam. This whoever launched this fest is probably like kicking themselves. Day two, like, they were probably stabbing themselves.
Yes.
There was, like, I don't know. It was probably day one was just over half as many people as they expected to be there. Mm-hmm. Day two was probably, like, a third.
There was almost no one there. And it was objective. The sum of all parts on Sunday, I think, was of greater value than the sum of all parts on Saturday.
Oh, the music on Sunday was way better.
The music was way better.
Yeah.
We got to see Car Seat Headrest. They put on a great show to a crowd that I don't think knew who they were or what they were all about.
They were cool.
And by the end, they had won some fans over. You could tell.
Definitely.
For sure.
They were more interesting live than I thought they were going to be. There was comedy at this festival. Day one.
Oh, yeah, that was
to backtrack. One of the things that was interesting was that they decided to hand out tickets to let you in to the comedy shows for specific comics. And if you didn't have one of the tickets that they handed out, which were not part of your purchase tickets, they just handed them out at like 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. every day. Mm-hmm. If you didn't get one of those tickets, you didn't get in. The trick is you get a ticket, and then you wait in line behind everyone else who has a ticket, and then everyone else is fucked. Which, like, I thought was just a really interesting way to see how many Twitter followers each comedian has.
Yeah,
because how the fuck else could we find out about that?
And, like, in defense, it is the way that they kind of do it at comedy clubs.
Okay.
Like, at least in Vegas, it's like you get your ticket, and your ticket's like the key to line up at another line to get into the place to get seated at the table.
That sounds like hell. I don't want to wait in lines. If I'm paying for a thing, I'm paying for the thing.
I get this feeling that there's like an inflated, like, this is the time-honored tradition of stand-up. This is the way that it has been done for eons. Therefore, who are we to drop the torch of our forebearers?
First person to throw it out the window is going to make way more money than everyone else.
Yeah. And it's definitely like the comedy club vibe. And a lot of comedians don't like doing festival gigs. Like, you know, if you can't command a tent, you definitely can't command the main stage.
Well, command the main fucking stage then. Get to it. These bands are commanding the stage. Okay, so comedy is... We're going to have an episode in the future about comedy. My brother Sam Fraze will be on to talk about comedy. But, so comedy seems to me to be like one of the hardest things to do.
Oh, of course.
To keep someone's attention, to keep them engaged. And that's why there are so many bad bad comics. Even people who are like good in movies who also do stand-up and shit, most of their stand-up is fucking terrible. Like, for stand-up to be good, it's like the top, like, less than 1% of comedians that are actually, like, I will sit down and watch an hour of them and be entertained the whole time.
Comedy is super difficult.
So hard.
And you go into this tent, and it does kind of feel like at a festival. You signed up to do a festival. It is a festival. It feels like the training wheels are on when you don't let people come see it out of fear that they're going to be drunk or talking or not get your shit.
It seems like, oh, I'm going to play for my friends. I'll play for my family. But I'm not going to play music for strangers. It's like, it seems like the coddling problem. Where it's like, oh, you don't want to be hit with the realization that you kind of might suck at what you do for a living some of the time.
Or you just might...
Or have a bad night.
Not be as well adapted to a larger crowd, which eventually, if you're going to make the money that would make it a career, you step up and can handle the next step up.
Totally.
And like, who am I to be throwing stones? Like, I don't get up on stage and tell jokes. But,
it's true, I would be terrible at it.
But like, as someone who's gotten up on stage and sung songs and played music, like...
Yeah.
There's an element of falling flat on your face that has to happen in order for you to like really put some different kind of work in.
And comedians just like experience that falling flat on their face so often. And I do feel bad, but I'm not interested in a fandom that is initially based on sympathy.
And is also initially, and I think a subtlety that we've already talked about, but I think for the listeners, I just want to drill home of like, there were so few seats for the comedy tent at this festival that you would have had to follow one or all of the comedians on Twitter to have known what time the tickets were being given out or to know that tickets were even being given out in the first place.
We didn't know until it was too late.
We looked all over that website trying to plan the day. Like when you go to a Summerfest and like a recommendation for you, like you got to have a plan. You can't just show up. You got to know who's playing. You got to know who's playing when. You got to know when you're going to have to book it from point A to point B in order to get it all together.
Especially with one like this where there's like tabletop gaming, like I said. You can go and play games. You can go and like meet people who design like the games and do the images for comic books or whatever. It's like interactive, so you could get stuck.
And you can get stuck and you have to plan time to be stuck. But yeah, even as the two of us went and looked through and went through this thing with like a fine-tooth comb to figure out where we should be, there was no information on the website that said, oh, and by the way, if you want to see comedy, you better get here before anyone is willing to get here and sit through all those bands that no one's willing to sit through in order to stand in line to get a ticket to stand in line to watch some people who were questionable to begin with.
Yeah. I don't know. It seemed we might be spending too much time on it, but like the experience of it was very interesting because it felt like we were showing up to one festival, ended up showing up to one that seemed cooler, but we weren't welcome at.
Yeah. We tried to go see comedy. We like made an honest attempt to go see comedy.
But later that day, just to run through some of the bands we saw, a band that I've been dying to see live for a long time, and they actually put on a fucking amazing show, Animal Collective.
So good.
They were incredible. Don't need to say much more.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we need to go into it. Like, they're fantastic. Listen to them. Watch some live videos. Watch the Letterman version of Summertime Clothes if you want to see what the like last song of their set was kind of like in a live sense.
And then, so a weird thing happened. So day one, because it was so empty, the lawn seats, which we bought, got upgraded, and we could then go into the far back seating row. Right? So we were allowed to go forward. On day two, the last band that played was Girl Talk, which we'll get to in a second. But before TV on the Radio came on, TV on the Radio is a band that I've been listening to for a long time.
They're great.
They're amazing live. I'd seen them before. This woman came around. We were sitting in the nearly empty back row of seats. Like, what was it, the back
section,
10 rows?
It's like if there were 3 sections, it was we were in section 2, and section 3 was the general admission ticket that we had bought.
Exactly.
So we're in section 2, or like the front of section 2.
This woman comes around and she's like, hey, Girl Talk is shooting a music DVD tonight or something. They're shooting like a live thing. We need people up front, and there's nobody here, basically. Can we give you these wristbands to come up front? Will you stay if we give them to you?
And we were like, we might not stay, but we didn't say that out loud, and we took the wristbands.
Yeah, so we were like 4 or 5 rows away, TV and the radio.
Yeah, and intentionally, we could have gotten closer if we wanted to. There were empty seats. We just kind of didn't want to be in the the
touching
thick
people.
of it's just that it's not necessary. So yeah, we sat in like the 6th row.
Yep.
Yeah. That being said, there's some other places that we've been hanging out.
Yep.
This summer.
It wasn't just Idiot Fest.
That's got festivals because we have been to the fair.
Multiple fairs.
2 fairs.
2 fairs.
There's a third. It's Fair the Trilogy because there's a 3rd fair that has to be attended in order to complete this segment. So next check-in, you might want to look for an update on this fair. But
What fair we'll be at?
yeah, because it's going to be the state fair.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
That's the biggest of them.
The biggest of them all.
So these were counties.
These were like county fair, regional fair. We get the state fair coming up soon, and that's that's going to be our bread and butter. So look out for us at the state fair in Sacramento coming up. But we went to the fair. We had all kinds of fried shit.
It was a Summerfest of fried sausage and like cheese.
Cheese sauce.
Like nacho cheese sauce dripped all across this like foot-long sausage in a bun with peppers. That was super
God,
good.
it was so good.
Yeah.
What did you see looking around there in the food section? So for all of you who maybe haven't been to a fair, I don't know who you might be,
I don't know.
listeners.
You
They
get
have all
sunburns
these
and
trolley
diarrhea.
trucks. They're selling like fried ham and mutton leg and ribs and sausage.
There's just like legs of chicken, fried anything. There's like fried cheesecake and Oreos, and then there's like a bunch of barbecue places like we mentioned, and then there's just kind of like different versions of pastry with cinnamon sugar.
Yes.
Right? Like churros.
Blank pastry with cinnamon sugar topping. Do you want a funnel cake? Do you want a waffle cone, etc.? So speaking of all of those things, I just want to propose a trivia question to you. Not even a trivia question, just like an opinion. In your opinion, what was like the most out of place or the most I would never touch that at a fair? Or
like the grossest shit I've ever seen?
Like where was there the most dissonance between the ability for them to do something in high quality and also sell it at the fair? And what's the thing that like revolted you the most that was for sale there in the regular old food section?
Let me think about that. Because we're standing in there in the fair, right? And it's like hot.
It's like 105 degrees.
Yeah, it was
not
during the heat
exaggerating,
wave.
1 degree.
We were burning, and that was okay. We were drinking light beer in large quantities, and I feel like the worst thing would be something fried. Because everything else I think I could stomach.
Okay.
Grease I can take, but like a fried coating. Personal dislike is I really fucking hate candied apples, but that's not. Or fried cheesecake might be the most disgusting.
See, that sounds kind of good. Is it the batter that doesn't do it for you? Just like the extra layer?
Cheesecake, for me, it's like best cheesecake is cold.
Yeah.
So if you fry it, it's not cold.
But here's the have you had any of those like deep fried Oreos?
I've had Oreo.
So Oreos are typically served at room temperature, right? So you fry them up and like the outside's hot, but the Oreo's just an Oreo. It's still crunchy. So when they deep fry the cheesecake, it's probably frozen.
Right.
And they probably flash fry it for like 10 to 15 seconds just to golden brown the batter.
Right.
So it could actually still be cold inside. I'm just making a little bit of a defense for the fried cheesecake.
Well,
I've never had
it. What if it was like lukewarm? That's almost worse than it being hot.
The lukewarm cheese.
The lukewarm cheesecake here at the Walnut desk.
It sounds like a children's book.
Yeah. Bobby and the lukewarm cheesecake.
Yeah. It's like once upon a time, Bobby woke from his slumber and meandered down the stairs in his onesie.
Meander?
He opened the fridge and peered inside. He saw a cheesecake. He proceeded to deep fry it. It became lukewarm, and he ate it.
And nobody else bought it, so he had to eat it.
The end. Hey, if Jimmy Fallon can put out 2 New York Times best-selling children's books, we should try to.
I agree. We can definitely do better than Jimmy, I don't have a personality Fallon.
No, I like Jimmy
I know you do.
Nah.
I hate that guy.
Fallon.
It's like a limp fish.
Speaking of limp fish, here's the least appetizing thing at the fair from my list.
Dear God.
there was an entire stand selling shrimp cocktail and ceviche
Oh, I forgot about that.
on a 105-degree day
Shrimp cocktail.
in the Valley of California.
No.
So if you want a jumbo prawn cocktail under the California sun, head on over to the county fair. We got them all for you.
All right, what's the distinction between prawns and shrimp? Is it just different names for the same thing, or are they different?
I think prawns are bigger. It's like jumbo shrimp. I think it's a regional thing.
Okay.
And we just entered a time warp.
Okay.
In California, where we did not know that a prawn was a thing, except from the movie
District 9.
Fucking Prawns. That's the movie, District 9. Have I told this story on the podcast yet? I don't think I have. So hey, listeners, while Ryan looks up what a prawn is, I'm gonna be very honest with you. So at one point in my poorer days in college, I pirated should I not admit that?
No, you should totally admit that.
Someone may or may not have pirated the movie District 9 just to watch in my leisure. And I watched the entire movie. The folder that the file came in had a subtitle file in it.
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, I didn't think that I needed subtitles. I was like, I know how to hear. I'm going to be paying close attention to this. I don't need to also read it. So I watched the entire movie of District 9 without the subtitles for the prawns speaking. So like the entire portion of that movie that humanizes the prawns.
You didn't even see what they were talking about.
I had no idea. So like my stance and my feeling and my interpretation of that movie, to this day, I have not seen it with the prawns dialogue because I've been resisting. Because I just have, that movie was one experience to me that was not the experience that everybody else had.
Right, you were just lost.
Yeah.
It was a visual movie.
So
for
kids,
you.
heed that FBI warning, because if they don't find you, they will make your movie incomprehensible.
It's true. It's true. And then so we found out the answer.
What's
here.
a prawn?
Prawn and shrimp are not the same thing.
Wow.
They're not. They have very slightly different body shapes, forms. Things they have in common are generally like similar sizes. They can be smaller and larger. So the jumbo ones are not the prawns. Mm-hmm. There are
The
shrimp
first
large.
sentence of this description is like, nope, Will, you're wrong.
Nope, Will.
Some people say that prawns are big ones and shrimps are small ones. Nope, wrong. Very Trumpian dismissal of my point.
So, but like they're slightly different, and I will say I've had both, and I think that shrimp have more flavor, and that prawns largely don't have very much flavor.
I don't know.
Like
I
they
have to go do
seem
a
kind of
taste
gross.
test.
They seem grosser.
We should do a blind taste test. Shrimp versus prawn.
Shrimp versus prawn, and then we're gonna make it into a major motion picture in the sequel of Alien versus Predator. Shrimp versus prawn.
All right, so shrimp and prawn are not the same thing. Don't buy ceviche at the fair. But you know what you should buy at the fair? You should buy hot sauce at the fair.
You should totally try and then buy hot sauce at the fair, especially if Lucky Dog hot sauce booth is there.
We love that sauce. Here's a little history of me and Lucky Dog sauce. I went to the fair first time and saw the guy who makes the hot sauce at the bar that I go to that I loved, that I had never seen anywhere else before. This one bar stocks this Lucky Dog hot sauce. Cool. So I saw him there. I was like, I know your sauce. I put it all over my barbecue when I go. And he was like, try all my flavors. The first year I bought like 6 bottles of hot sauce.
Yeah.
So I went back this year and I went straight to him.
Yep.
We did the whole flight.
Yep. You brought Hannah and I right over there. We all tried them all. They step you up in spiciness. I'm actually not a hot sauce person, but I walked away with 3 bottles of this hot sauce, and it's amazing. I'm putting it on everything, and I even got like almost the spiciest version. It's just so flavorful. It doesn't matter how spicy it is, and it doesn't last that long.
Yeah, you do it a little differently than I do with your food. I just pour the hottest one all over my pizza.
Oh, God.
Like, I could take a butter knife and just do like a thin layer on top of the pepperoni of the ghost pepper sauce. And I eat the whole thing. And then I dip the crust in blue cheese to cool my mouth down, and then I go on to the next slice.
Well, yeah. So I was totally turned from non-hot sauce enjoying person to somebody who fucking loves this. At least the Lucky Dog.
Yeah,
and they're based right out here in California. They're based in Hayward,
which
is actually where we're recording this at the moment. So if anybody on the East Coast is listening, you should order this shit. So also at the fair, this is Summerfest. Our skin is burning. We're dehydrated. We're drinking cheap beer for too much money. We walk around. We're looking at the booths. We just are sweating because of the hot sauce. And one thing you can do is talk to the weird guy in the corner with his laptop open and a projection screen with a sign in the back that says, "The Eye of God."
And he was a trip.
So set up the scene for us, Will, because I did a poor job.
I'm walking by, and there's two long warehousey type buildings. In like, if you were to slide the bar, the horizontal bar of an H, like up a little bit closer to the top,
Yep.
it was a building like that. And in the horizontal bar of the H portion of this building, in the corner was a man from Humboldt County, a really small town in Humboldt County, California. He was there set up with like his ThinkPad and a slideshow running on Windows Media Player on like Windows Vista. And he had the image editing software GIMP up. And he had all these posters that said the Eye of God. We saw the Eye of God. Check here for proof of the Eye of God. And at the minute, like, I walked over with a little bit of like my Walnut Desk host persona on, being like, I saw GIMP on there. Like, I know that's open source Photoshop. I use it for promo stuff for the podcast, like doing graphics and stuff. Like, I'm familiar with the program. So I kind of walked over there being like, I'm gonna do some like mental wrestling with this guy and like get him to say something that contradicts his point. That I wanted him to admit that he used Photoshop to add the Eye of God into an existing photo.
Yeah.
That was my prejudice in this situation. So what happened?
Well, because in the background, he, up on this projection screen, he's got this photo of like a painting that's framed, and then it's a painting of these praying hands together, and then above the praying hands is this circular looking thing that he claims is the Eye of God.
The Eye of God.
Right. So we go up there, and we're like, so how'd you find this? And he's like, well, let me walk you right through it. And he walks us through this process of adding filters to a photograph until the photograph starts to look weird. Like different color filters, and then eventually...
He was like doing motion blurs and like inverting colors and doing all kinds of shit that like would make artifacts appear
yes
in a digital image.
Right.
Like
there's no... Okay, so we went deep on conspiracies, but there's no part of us that could... Like, we tried, actually, could latch on to this guy.
And like part of me...
And believe him.
Part of me like walked up and being like, this guy's trying to hustle. Like he's trying to get donations for his new church. He's trying to hustle. He's trying to make money. He's not.
He's
and that's when
the word of the Eye of God.
And that's when I kind of like took it back a little bit, because like I went up there to be like, I'm gonna catch you in a like manipulation thing, and we're gonna like have a conversation about like why you're doing this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are you trying to manipulate people into believing that this is real? What's your motive?
What's your cult look like?
And really, what it turned into was like this man just like wanted to seem like really like genuinely wanted to interact with humans.
Yeah, he seemed like a little retired. Maybe he's got some money because he can buy the booth.
Yep. And those booths are not cheap. We looked into it.
It looked like, and then people at other booths knew who he was. He was like the Eye of God guy. So I honestly, in the end, didn't even really believe that he believed it. I think he's just there.
You think he's just there? I do think he believed it because,
you do?
Well, just the mood that I was in at that time, I think that I know that if I believed that he didn't believe it, I would have kept pressing him.
Okay.
Like I backed off like as almost as like a gesture. I was like, I'm not gonna like, there's no battle to fight here.
Yeah. I did let him...
I'm not changing any minds.
We did shake his hand.
Yes.
And I don't think I should have let him touch my hand. Because it makes me feel the willies a little bit when I think about it. Still.
Well, if Saturn theory is true, he could have just like really
the eye of Saturn.
Poisoned you.
Right.
Spiritually.
Right. Well, he had this like finger that was like a little bit chopped off at the top.
I did not notice that.
And so he would make the praying hands motion that was in his video and hold those hands up to your face when he was explaining things.
Yeah.
And he would show you his semi-chopped off top of the finger.
Yeah, now that we're talking about it, I do remember what his goal was for doing this. He wanted publicity for the prayer hands story. Well, he just wanted it out there that
he's got it.
So let's give him a little free press. It was the prayer hands.
The prayer hands.
The prayer. I think if you Google, it'll probably show up. Mm-hmm. I did not know what he meant when he kept saying the prayer hands. So I don't fault you if you don't either.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But look it up. But basically, it's a picture of
two hands.
Two hands, not interlaced fingers, but lined up in prayer. Mm-hmm. Thumbs in.
Yep.
And just above the middle fingertips of this hand is where the eye of God appeared.
Exactly. And he said that he's found other eyes of God in other things and showed us a few of those. But I was kind of like overwhelmed and getting tired at that point. I was like not paying attention anymore.
And you probably weren't paying attention when he told me that if I really wanted to, he would mail me a postcard that had instructions on how to make my own eye of God.
Right, but if you can make your own, does that make it not real?
Well, I think he thinks that it exists in every prayer hands photo. Cool. Or any photo of religious significance.
All right.
Well, if you see prayer hands, dude, just say hi for us.
Hey, man. So we've talked about the booths where everybody posts up. We've talked about the food. There are a couple things left to talk about. One of them is the carnival games.
The unwinnable.
We didn't play any.
No, of course not. I have a rule. I have $5 of budget for those carnival games.
That's just setting a $5 bill on fire.
Basically.
We watch the people play the games.
The people who are in the target market for carnival games. Mm-hmm.
Children.
AKA teenagers on dates.
And, yeah.
Adults on dates.
Yep.
Small boys and girls who are falling victim to marketing of popular cartoon and video game characters and wanting a plushie.
Yeah, it's definitely not the really fucking creepy people who work there convincing people to play the games because they are really off-putting and aggressive. And so we watched one, which was a game where you're supposed to throw a baseball at a bottle. Mm-hmm. It's in a rubber containing
it's
thing.
In up to so the bottleneck
it's upside down
is up so the bottleneck is in a hole.
Yep.
And the right where it starts to flare out on the beer bottle is just outside the hole. Yep. So structurally it's the strongest way to put that bottle against baseball fire.
And we watched a grown man hurl a baseball at one of these bottles and hit it square on. And then we watched the baseball bounce off and go to the side. And the guy just be like, nope, you don't win shit for your kid who's with you.
And the sad part is it's $20 for 7 throws.
No.
It's
it's that much money?
It's $3 a throw. Or my favorite one is when they have 100 ducks in the gross water.
Yes.
And you have to fish the duck out, and one of the ducks has a black star on the bottom of it, and none of the other ones do.
Do it with your mouth.
Bobbing for ducks.
Yeah, those are fucking terrible, and they're a rip-off.
Oh, here's the other racket about those things that I noticed just from doing some reading. Which I know a lot of people don't go to the fair to do reading.
Well.
So you miss this when you start playing a game. You've already handed over your money before the rules are really explained to you. If you happen to win round 1 of a game, they usually have the really big prizes that everyone wants hanging on the front, and they have all the little ones in the back.
Yes.
They're kind of background decoration noise to the game.
Yep.
Most of those are set up, it depends on the company, because there's a lot of different companies running the games, but they're set up on a tiered system, meaning that if you were to succeed one time, you get a level 1 prize. But in order to get the level 4 prize, that's the big prize, you actually have to succeed 8 or 9 times. And that's how they scaffold the value. You would think, do I really get to choose the big one or the little one? Why wouldn't I choose the big one? It's because you actually have to trade in multiple little ones for a big one. So you have to pay probably close to $100.
But if somebody
and have
won,
really good luck.
the big one with the baseball tossing game, they should probably be a major league pitcher.
King of the fair. King
Yeah.
or queen. You know what throwing the ball really hard reminds me of, which leads me to another thing that I know you feel very passionate about.
Yeah?
Reminds me of the check your speed baseball. Like how many miles per hour do you throw?
Okay, yeah,
Which was
yeah.
on the other side of the fair, which was right next to the cover band that was playing Everlong.
Oh my god. The cover band. So this cover band was probably all of them were in their like late 50s, mid 50s ish. And the lead singer was a very tall, aggressive, loud. He seems like he should be entertaining, but his singing was just so bad. But he was really into it.
Yes, this band, and this is a thing that happens a lot, especially in bands like this, playing at the fair.
Yep.
They fall victim to this guy started the band, therefore we can't kick him out of it syndrome.
But you should, guys. If you can hear us now, kick him out. He's not doing you any good. Singing Everlong like a fucking dying horse.
Oh, and you know, like when you sense, and if you've been on stage, you might understand the feeling of like kind of sensing when something is not working out right.
Yeah.
And doing the nonverbal cue of like, let's wrap it up a couple verses early and just try the next thing.
Move forward.
There was no even attempt to do that.
No, it was like a 7-minute Everlong.
They played like 6 minutes of it and then sang the outro over and over and over again for an extra minute.
And we heard it from like various points in the park around that stage as we were walking. It was just a fucking nightmare. And then they played other songs that were just really, really like cliched phrases that they yelled out over and over and over again.
They even wrote a song. So we did a little while back. We did the Top 40 podcast with Max and Andrew from the Desert Island Discourse podcast. Shout out there. And we decided at the end that like Ryan and I were going to try to write a Top 40 song. That would fit in with that. We haven't done it yet. We've been working on a different musical project. But yeah, we were going to write a pop song. And the pop song working title that we had going was called Do As You Feel.
Do what you feel.
Do what you feel.
Yeah.
And
do what you feel.
When we got to this band, they were playing a mediocre original song called Do What You Feel.
Yeah, that was the chorus.
And they just said Do What You Feel in a very flat melody the entire time. And we're like, we were going to do that. And we were going to unseat Despacito
as number one
on the list.
But you know what? Their message of their song suggests that we should write that song, even though it's the same song, because we should do what we feel.
Do what we feel. At the Walnut Desk podcast, our official stance is to do what you feel.
Do what you feel.
Do what you feel. We've unwrapped all the layers of the onion of the fair, and we haven't even got to the main attraction yet, which is the rides.
Oh, no. Yeah, but that's not the main attraction for me. For me,
it's not for me either.
It's the food.
But I think that, like, if you were to do a poster
maybe.
of a fair, you would have to say, like, Ferris wheel at the top in order to convince people that it wasn't just a bunch of dudes selling hot sauce and a guy trying to convince you that the eye of God was in his prayer hands painting in his grandma's cabin.
But that all sounds exciting. To me, even if I hadn't experienced it. But yeah, you're right. No, the rides have to be there. There's the Ferris wheel. There's the scrambler. There's the one that goes vertically. What's it called? The
Zipper.
Yeah. I mean, when was the last time you were on one of these rides?
I, as a rule, have pretty much always avoided rides that can be broken down, put on a truck, and brought somewhere else.
That's very, very good rule. That's a very good rule.
I didn't even have to think very hard to come up with that rule for myself.
Yeah.
I just don't actually have the desire to go on any of those rides there. Bring me to a nice Six Flags or a Canopy Lake Park, and I'm all over those rides because they have been installed. That business makes their money based on people not dying there, and I trust that that's going to happen. I dug into this a little bit because I had a feeling that these rides are not safe.
Right. I have that feeling too.
I have this habit of when I go to the fair, looking at the rides and counting how many potential points of human failure there are on the ride. So I think about how the modular design of say a train track
they have to
comes in
them.
1, 2, 3. There's 15 support beams, and each one of those has a pin that needs to be through and needs to be properly spring-loaded and properly, like, adjusted and set. And I count how many of those possible points of failure there are.
Yeah.
And, like, the statistical analysis part of my brain says, don't fucking go on those rides, you dumbass.
Here's an interesting question. Okay.
Every time I get the feeling, my brain tells me no.
So regardless of not whether you plan on having children someday, if you were to have children, would you let your children go on the rides?
No.
Okay. Good.
Because I will be
would.
mean dad.
Yeah.
And I will gladly take that. And then on their 21st birthday, I'll like pour them a beer and be like, "You made it.
You made it.
Good thing you never went on the zipper at the county fair."
So I went on the zipper recently. This was when I was the summer before I left Western Mass. So like
willingly.
So Hannah
This is in your adult years.
This is I was in my late 20s.
I was about to be like, can we get your mom on the podcast and be like, why'd you let Ryan go on the zipper?
20
Did you
years
want him
old.
to die?
I didn't go with. Okay, so me and Hannah went to the Western Mass, like Northampton Fairgrounds fair.
Okay.
And we were like, cool. We went in the. It was like we were just dating, right? So it's like we got in the. Whatchamacallit? The Ferris wheel.
There's no better way to like.
And we're like, haha.
To start a date, to stir up some fun, than to like scare the shit out of yourself.
I'm fucking terrified.
That's why we take dates to horror movies. That's why we go on things that are gonna break. Statistically, they're gonna break. But so you went on the zipper.
I wonder if there's like some like weird hormonal secretion that happens when you feel fear that you think is attractive to the opposite sex, so you put yourself in fear-based situations.
We should do some experiments. I mean, ladies, I'm out there and I'm looking. So
He's ready to be afraid.
If you want to go on fear dates, let's hit them up. Haunted house, the zipper that'll kill us, movie,
Jetty run.
Should I change my like dating profile to say I only want to go on dates that will make both of us extremely terrified?
But we went on the zipper right after the Ferris wheel. And I was like, oh yeah, this will be fun. The zipper, if you don't know, listeners, is it's the one where there's like a bunch of cages that can hold two people, and they're on basically a looped conveyor belt, going around and around as the mechanism that the conveyor belt is wrapped around is also spinning around and around.
So the cart spins and the arm spins. So you can be up and upside down and spinning.
So the most terrifying point is when the thing is rotating and you're going forward and you come up over the edge and your face, like your body's parallel with the ground and you're moving really fast toward the ground.
And you're on the downhill.
And you're looking over and you realize that this thing isn't held shut with much. Like, this thing could fucking open.
It's a pin.
Yeah, it's
like a metal pin with a little spring-loaded.
The weight of my body against it enough times could rattle it enough to open it. Was the impression that I had. So me and Hannah went on this ride, and by the end of it, we were like, our eyes were closed. I think we were both tearing up a little bit. We were fearing for our lives. We were screaming, not like, woo! We were screaming like, fuck! It was terrible. It was awful. So there's one more topic we have to talk about related to Summerfest.
Summerfests?
I mean, we could go on and talk about different fests. We could go to more fests. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up episode.
Talk about the cookout, the grill.
The grill. But before this episode ends, let's talk about the Summerfest Sam Adams beer. What do you think about it?
I have an opinion about like Sam Adams as a brewer in general.
Yeah,
but like specifically with the summer beer, it's like it's okay.
Yeah,
I mean like I don't really know what it's trying to be.
Yeah, me either.
Like it's not like a Belgian. It's like not a fruited wheat beer.
No,
it's not like a traditional wheat beer, but it's, I don't know. It's just like an ale, right? It's like a summer ale. It's like a really light ale that takes out a lot of the caramel malt from the process.
Flavor takes that out.
That's what that provides. At least my favorite like flavor profile in beer comes from like the caramel tones of the malt.
I feel like if I were at a bar and it was like you can either get a Stella or this Sam Summerfest, I would go with the Sam Summerfest, but I can think of no other situation in which I would go with it, really.
At this point, like, I've been drinking a lot of light beer, and I kind of feel like I would go for a Coors Light over a Sam Summer at this point.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. Like, Sam Adams, they're from Massachusetts. I feel a desire to like beers from Massachusetts, being from Massachusetts myself.
It's like a local pride, local business.
And when I was a kid, I was like, well, not a kid, when I was in college, I was like, yeah, Sam Adams. And I was like, no, this sucks. And I was like, yeah, Harpoon. That's the like Boston alternative, decent beer, but they're not really.
They've like branched out a lot. I think that's ultimately hurt them.
Right.
Instead of doing 6 beers really well like they used to, they came out with all these different umbrella like lines.
And all of this
They've got those UFO, and there's like 9 UFOs now.
True.
There used to be one UFO. It was a hef. It was slightly orangey. It was like their better Blue Moon that didn't taste like it had corn syrup in it, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
And then they were like UFO IPA, UFO Black IPA, UFO White IPA, UFO Watermelon, and I'm just like, what? Just because you didn't filter it, like that makes it sellable?
Yeah. I think beer overall has gotten to a weird point for me because I don't care anymore. You know? Like, I went from being, like, college, drinking beer, whatever beer we could get, and now I've come full circle because it's like, I want to drink beer that doesn't make me that drunk, and that I can just kind of, it's just like, you know, relaxing, barbecue. I don't want a craft beer anymore. I think that, like, the craft beer thing relies on a consumer who wants to be perceived as, not just be, but to be perceived as someone with discerning taste. And I don't fucking care about that anymore.
When I did just a little bit of budgeting, and I was like, if I'm going to go out and have 3 beers with friends, and I really want to have a Lagunitas IPA, and I'm going to have 3 of them
Tasty.
at $8 each, I can get 3 Coors for $4 each. Yeah, the alcohol is less, but it is not half.
It's not half.
And like, as far as like being full and like you either like waddle around for the rest of the day after having 16, 32, 48 ounces of beer in your stomach.
Yep.
Or you like drink the light, mostly water beer, you use the bathroom, and you can like still do things afterwards.
Yeah.
So like just like the way I feel and the cost kind of combined together to just make it a no-brainer for me to like
is huge.
Have one nice beer, like the nicest one that they have, and then just switch over, save your money.
There are specific kinds of beers that I would like go out of my way for, but at this point I've definitely gotten to a default of like, I want a really nice cocktail or some whiskey or just some beer. Some shitty beer.
And you do, you know, you have your moments where you can be the discerning taste person, but really all those discerning taste folks just look at like a meta list and pick the top 5.
Yeah.
And they do the circuit and they try their heady topper.
Right.
And they try, no shade to people who like make the pilgrimage up to Vermont to grab a like 6-pack of heady topper when it comes up.
Totally.
Like, they do their heady topper out here. They do their Pliny the Elder. They do their Pliny the Younger, which is madness out here. Like, they tap kegs at like 10 o'clock in the morning and the line is around the block and the keg is kicked before. Like, they have to like limit pours to like 4 ounces. It's like a beer that has like a following. It's like going to a Beatles concert.
Right.
I just want to give go back to Sam Adams a little bit because they are the number 2 craft brewer in the country.
Distribution-wise?
Just like, volume.
Okay. I was going to say, like, rated?
Do you know who number 1 is?
The number
it's like sales and
craft
production. So
beer?
it's and like you have to kind of like do some mental gymnastics to figure out like what the definition of craft beer.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think about right now.
Like,
What's
when
the
does something
criteria?
become a macro brewery?
Yeah. I actually have no idea. Sam?
Actually, we lived in the like the prohibited zone for this beer for a while.
Yingling?
Yeah, it's Yingling.
Really?
Number 1.
Yingling is the number 1 craft beer distributor in the country?
It's like leftover, and this is what I've been told, and I haven't done research on this. So
Okay.
this is just me talking shit.
Yeah,
yes, factually, Yingling is number 1. Yes, factually, Boston Beer, aka Sam Adams, is number 2. I know that for sure. That's been researched. The fact that we were on in Massachusetts and still in California are on like a blackout from Yingling. They don't distribute here.
Yeah.
It's a leftover. I believe it's a leftover over Prohibition era thing where like states started to like re-put back together how you could buy and sell alcohol in different ways, and the jigsaw doesn't fit right with all the states. So I think it like established very few beer distributors, especially for microbreweries.
Wow.
That have specific sales territories. And there's probably some conscious choice from the company to like not push on those laws and try to get into huge markets like California.
Oh, yeah, probably, yep.
But I feel like Massachusetts was the perfect place for it, and they didn't have it for years and years. And
Now
years.
they do.
They do now.
And I've never chosen it over other beers.
Oh, it's like for the snob in me wants to come out because like right now I'm just like, yeah, I like Coors Light, like it's fine. It's good.
No,
enough.
but Yingling, when I had Yingling,
But I think it tastes
like,
better than the others
it
in
tastes
that same price range.
no different than like a Summerfest to me. It tastes just kind of like blah.
Yeah, I get the light.
Rolling Rock.
Get the light. It's better than a Coors Light.
Yeah, right.
Another thing is like Sam Adams. I just like need to say this. Sam Adams is like the leadoff hitter, for a baseball analogy, the leadoff hitter of beer.
Okay, how's that?
They, their goal is to get on base as much as possible, right? If you can follow this. So the leadoff hitter, you got to get on base so that other people can knock you in so you can score runs.
Okay, I don't even know enough about baseball to know that that's what that means, but thank you.
So you want to get on base. Right? Sam Adams gets on base. They make an IPA, and it's a good IPA. Okay. They make a porter. They make 7 different porters, and none of them are bad.
Right.
But none of them are exceptional.
Right.
Just like most leadoff hitters are not the superstar on the team. Like sometimes you get a good defensive superstar first, leadoff hitter.
So like they perform well, but they're not actually good.
They're not amazing. They're not going to make the all-star team for me.
Right. They're like the OK Go of beers.
Wow. And on that note, guys, it's been awesome talking to you about Summerfest. Throw us a like on YouTube, a subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter.
Make some other accounts. Follow us on Twitter with those accounts.
Yeah, and like get into it with us. Do it anonymously. We don't care. We still are on iTunes.
And you can give us those sweet, sweet ass 5-star ratings with the description.
Yeah, and the descriptions are great. They're exactly what we need in order to promote our podcast to other folks so that we can keep doing what we're doing.
Yep.
So that the family and the community can grow bigger. The more voices, the better.
Give us your feedback. Also, take your friends' phones and download the Walnut Desk podcast on them.
Coming up at the end of the month, Walnut Desk is going to be going to the Waxahachie show in San Francisco, California.
Hell yeah, we are.
You can see us there screaming our faces off to support some really, really, really awesome up-and-coming musicians.
And we'll mention that again, and anything else we end up doing this summer, we hope to see you there.